Hello and welcome to episode 2 of my ongoing HTML series. In this episode, I'm going to show you a little bit more about the anchor tag. It's going to be kind of quick, but I think it'll be worth it. The anchor tag creates those blue links that you see on websites that take you places. They can go to other websites. For example, we could link to www.google.com, or they could link within your website. In the case of what you see here on my screen, index.html is the current file that we're editing, and about.html is another file in the same directory that we can link to. Now, the thing about the href and your local links, things that link to stuff within your site, there's a few things you can do. If you put 2 dots and then a slash before where you're going, that will go up a level. If you had a folder, you could go basically back a folder and then pick a file from there. You can repeat this as many times as you need to move back recursive folders. Now, you can also put just a slash. The slash tells the link to go to the root of your site. Now, this is useful if you want to go quickly and easily always to the index. To give you an example, I'm going to create a folder in my project. I'm going to call this folder Subpages. I'm going to move the About file into Subpages. Now I'm going to leave both of these links with slashes in front of them so that they try to go to the root, and I'll explain to you what happens. When I load this page up, I have both my home and my about links as I had previously, but when I click on about, it's going to give me an error saying that the page was no longer found. Now, you'll also notice that my web server goes to localhost port 8888/lessons/html_1/index.html. When I click on about, all of that goes away. All of the folders that create my web root on my local machine, it goes to the absolute highest root that it can. That's very useful if you're trying to get to an index or something, but it's not very useful if you don't understand the usage of it. So in this case, since about is in a folder, I need to actually add subpages. When I return to our page, you'll see home takes me to the same spot. It reloads the current page, which is the action that we're actually looking for. The about button, however, now takes us within that folder. And then when we go back home, we're going to get an error because it's looking for index within the subpages folder. So what I have to do now is I have to go to this about page, and then we're going back a folder. Because we're in the subpages folder, we need to go back to the HTML_1 folder. By adding 2 dots and a slash, we're telling it, go back a level, then give me the index.html file. So let's go ahead, go back to our main index, and let's try it again. Our home works no problem, as it did before, but when we go to our about page, it also works. It's this back button that was giving us issues. So let's click on it and see what happens. As you can see, it removes us from the directory. Observe this path, lessons HTML1 index.html. So I'm going to remove this from the folder, and then I'm going to delete this folder since I really don't need it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you some more quirky features of the anchor tag. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add a anchor tag, but this anchor tag is going to send an email to a specific address. Anchors in the href tag take certain types of directives, and these directives allow us to control what the link actually does. Some of these directives are custom and can be installed on your computer, like Skype, for example. You could create a link to automatically open someone's Skype and to call you if you wanted. This one is mail to : the address. Now, let's go ahead and look at this. You'll now see it looks like a link, and when I click on it, it'll open up my email. Now there's not just the mail to. There's also a new one that's fairly popular, especially if you're doing mobile development. It's the tell colon. This allows you to put in a number, and it will actually call this number if you're on a mobile phone. While it's useful being able to write raw JavaScript into your tags, it's not quite as useful as we would hope. People find it easier to put methods and simple calls into the href when it actually makes your code a little messy when you have a lot of JavaScript. Or even using a framework like jQuery to select your elements, or to use a class or an ID to target your elements and have the JavaScript work off of an event rather than to have it written directly into the href. Your code gets messy and it does not separate your views from your logic like you really should. So let's go ahead and see this work. You'll see we'll now get a JavaScript hi dialog. It's a very simple call, but it gives you the idea of what you can do with it. Another really useful attribute of the A tag, which not a lot of people use, but they really should, is the Hreflang. Hreflang lets the browser know what language the link will be. So, for example, if you were to link to google.com.cn, which is the Chinese version of Google, you would want to add the cn or the xn tag to the hreflang. That lets the browser know that the page loading will be Chinese. The next very important attribute is target. Target has a couple of options: blank, parent, self, top, and a few others. What target allows us to do is control how we want the link to be followed. In the case of blank or underscore blank, it actually will create this link, it will load this link in an entirely new window. That way, if you wanted it to link to terms and services or terms and conditions or something along those lines, you can target blank and it will pop up a smaller window with the link in it. Note, you can also target iframe names and a few other small, very unique usage cases using the target, but not all browsers support it. So I'd recommend doing your research on the browser and your target audience before going ahead and using any of those complex targets. Things like blank, self, top, and your usuals will all work on all browsers. In fact, it's been around for some time, so you don't have to worry about compatibility basically at all.